Hello everyone, my name is Ginger Powers. You are currently watching part 1 of chapters 36 through 38 of Break Through the Limit fanfiction narration, the finale of the Cell Saga. If you're wondering where part 2 is, don't worry, I'll have it out tomorrow, and as soon as it's out, I'll include a link to that video in the description of this video, and for tomorrow's video, I'll have a link in the description for this video. I know, it's confusing. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Let's get on with the reading. Yes, it's finally done. You may notice that the chapters start to look slightly different from now on. I'm writing them directly onto the site's document managers rather than copying them from my Word documents. So things like speech marks, dashes, and ellipses will look slightly different, but nothing major. Anyway, enjoy. It's possible that some people might disagree with me about the events in this chapter, but the character in question hasn't really accomplished much so far, and hopefully my explanation makes sense. So I thought I'd let them have their moment. Alright, I'll end this bit now and just get on with the chapter. The Earth's fighters clustered together on the plain, trying to catch their breath after the intense battle with the Cell Juniors. One of the creatures had been vaporized by Bulma's machine, but the other 6 stood opposite the heroes in a neat line, forming a wall behind which towered Cell, laughing to himself. Well, I see no reason to stop my little game now. The show must go on! He swept an arm around dramatically. Who's next? Raditz? Or do you still have some fight in you, Goku? I'll finish what I started, Goku said confidently, stepping in front of the others. Come on! Hold on a second, Raditz growled, pushing past Goku. You've had your turn. Cell chuckled. Dear me, you still honestly believe you have a chance. That trick you pulled won't work twice. It doesn't have to, Raditz grinned. You've just been through 2 intense battles, then had to regenerate your entire body from just your head. Your power has been severely drained. Oh, I see. You think so? Cell seemed amused, his calm demeanor unsettling them. What's that supposed to mean? Nail demanded. Cell settled into a lower stance. Well, you might have been right. Had my full power not been so vastly beyond any of you that it makes no difference! His full power, Goku thought. Let's see it! Raditz grinned despite himself. I knew it. Cell inhaled deeply. If you insist. There was a noise like a thunderclap, and Cell's ki skyrocketed. Ah! Shockwaves of pure force poured out of his body, hurling Krillin, Zarbon, Frieza, and Bulma away from him, and a sparkling golden aura flickered to life around his body. The noise died down, and Cell stood up straight. Well, how do you like me now? What the hell is this? Raditz backed away a couple of steps involuntarily. We can't fight that! Nail frowned. His energy feels like he just became a Super Saiyan. Of course. Goku raised his guard. He's got our DNA, remember? I don't think DNA works like that! Bulma called from behind them. Given the evidence, Cell replied, indicating himself. I think we must conclude that it does. Now, he waved his Cell Juniors to stand back. As you can see, though I have indeed used up a considerable amount of energy during our battle, I'm still leagues above any of you. Raditz! Nail! Goku jumped at Cell from above. All together! Alright. Raditz set his jaw, running at the bioandroid from the left, as Nail approached from the right. It took Cell exactly 6.3 seconds to take down Earth's strongest fighters. Nail fired an energy beam from one hand as he charged, but it hissed right through Cell's afterimage as he appeared behind the Namek. Cell returned to fire at Nail, but Goku jumped in and shoved it out of its flight path, dodging a second blast from Cell, leaping in and throwing a quick Kamehameha wave at point-blank range. The dust blew away to reveal Cell's hands raised in front of him, having absorbed the attack with ease. He vanished, and a fast-to-the-point of invisibility strike floored Goku, before Cell appeared in front of Raditz, who flung himself to the side to avoid Cell's punch. Executing a perfect handspring, Raditz launched himself back at Cell, but was backhanded away. He drove his foot into the ground, stopping his flight, turning to see Cell rushing him. The fighters clashed together, rapidly exchanging blows. Before long, Cell's attack started to get through Raditz's defenses, and the third took him down. Nell ran in from behind, but he might as well have been moving in slow motion. Cell turned, lazily forming an energy ball between his fingers and detonating it in Nell's stomach, throwing him away through the air. It was done. There, Cell said, dusting his hands off. Now do you see? Do you understand? You never stood a chance. I just wanted some fun out of you, that's all. But... He crouched down next to Goku, who was trying to sit up. Before you die, I want you to know there was nothing you could do. I want you to despair. We're not done yet! Cell looked up on hearing the voice. Break was lurching towards him, wincing with every step as her wounds stung. He rolled his eyes. You again. Don't you ever give up. Well, I suppose not. Saiyans never do, after all. Bravery to the point of idiocy is in your nature. He stood up, turning to face her. Thankfully, that's a trait I didn't inherit, though I'm grateful for all those I did. This fight isn't over! Her speech seemed forced, fragmented, like how she used to talk when she transformed. But didn't she learn to control the form? Raditz thought, looking up and wiping blood from his face. It's like she's reached a tipping point. She's reverting back to her old self. There was a blur of movement, and Break felt an impact knock her to the ground. She closed her mind to the pain, pushing herself back up. She didn't have a plan, didn't know what she was going to do. But I won't stop. I have to keep going. Cell was turning away, but saw her walking towards him again. His eye twitched. You're back already? When are you going to accept your fate? I think you know. She took another step. Another. One at a time. Don't think. Just don't stop. There wasn't much hope, of course. Even if she had been at her absolute maximum, it wouldn't have been enough. Cell was too strong. Too fast. Maybe he really was the ultimate being. But she was the only one still standing. She was the strongest. This was up to her. If only Gohan had been there. Against that mystery power that he'd used to defeat Broly, Cell would have been utterly crushed. But they couldn't rely on that anymore. Besides, it was all her fault. Her time machine had brought this monster here. Her arrogance had allowed it to achieve its perfect form. It was her responsibility. Stubborn little. Cell flexed his arms, regaining his composure. I was going to kill Goku first, programming and all that. But such determination must be rewarded. Yes, I think I'm going to start with you. His image flickered, and instantly he stood inches away from her, looking down at the injured, staggering half-Saiyan, who flinched away at the sudden movement. Goku will of course be next, and then the rest of these fighters, if that isn't too strong a word, and then the rest of the people on this planet you've tried so hard to protect. But I'm going to save those parents of yours until last. Break shook with fear as Cell continued, taking a leisurely step towards her as she shrank back. And when they die, oh, so slowly and painfully, they'll know. They'll know it all came down to you, that you had one chance to save them, and you failed. He spat the last few words. And that is your reward for thinking yourself above me, you insect. No, Cell! She screamed, her hair wild with its golden energy. I will defeat you! Throwing her head back, she began powering up, pushing her body. Having mastered the Super Saiyan form, any attempt to simply bulk herself up cost her dearly in speed. Her body just couldn't contain any more energy without losing agility. But she continued pushing, ignoring the pain, her eyes becoming blank and hollow. It felt like her body was on fire. But there was one driving thought forcing her to carry on. I have to be stronger! Cell began a slow, sarcastic clap. Yes, very impressive. But you must know that this won't help you. All you're doing is making yourself an easier target to hit. Really, I expected better. Alright, I'll be honest, I didn't. This is exactly the kind of amateur mistake I'd expect from you. Raditz pushed himself onto one elbow. I know you're trying to make yourself stronger, Break, but not like this! It doesn't work. I've already tried it. Even when I knew what was doing, it just delayed the inevitable. The pain was almost unbearable now. Her skin felt like it was going to rip, her muscles ready to burst. But she kept going. It was there. Somewhere. A burning, emerald beacon. It rose up in her, pulsing through her blood, pushing her to a breaking point. I won't let you! Goku's eyes widened. Stop! Break, stop it now! Your body can't contain that much energy! Are you trying to kill yourself? It detonated. Her entire body seemed to rip apart, engulfed in a fiery green glow. The roar of energy grew so loud it deafened them, seeming to wrap right back around into silence. Cell blinked, trying to focus his enhanced senses to see what was going on. What the hell just happened? The light faded slightly, darkening to a deeper shade of green. A figure became visible at the center, slowly becoming clearer as the glow dimmed to a bearable level. Cell lunged, hissing, but there was a crunching sound and he was jerked to a halt. As he hung there, unmoving, all was finally revealed. Break stood at least a foot taller and more muscular than before, though not quite as much as the usual bulked-up form. Her wounds seemed to be healed, and her eyes were pure, blank white. Her hair seemed stretched out, almost completely standing up on end, and had the same green hue as her aura. She had one arm outstretched, fist planted in Cell's face. He fell away, grimacing. What did you do? He demanded. It's over, Cell, she growled. Another quick movement. Her legs swung around and Cell was knocked up into the air. She appeared above him, bringing her elbow down into his back and sending him flying back down, smashing into the ground and throwing out a huge crater. Cell crawled out of the crater, unsteadily rising to his feet. What is happening? How are you doing this? Answer me! She landed in front of him, smiling slightly. He snarled, focusing all his ki into one fist and throwing a punch straight at her face. But her hand was already there, catching his wrist and stopping the blow before it connected. Let go of me! Whatever you say. She released his hand, and he jumped away, massaging his wrist. Cell Junius, deal with this! Guys? The group of fighters had regrouped as the battle unfolded, and Krillin finally spoke. Is anyone else sensing this? Because her power, it feels like Broly. Raditz nodded. I guess both our kids turned out to have some serious potential, eh, Goku? Even if Gohan's was greater, he thought with just the slightest hint of bitterness. I mean, I guess she is just like her mother, always ready to fly into a rage. You know how the transformations always affected her mind, but still, I can't explain this. Wasn't there only supposed to be one legendary Super Saiyan every 1,000 years? Broly was the one, not her. Only once in a... Nail looked puzzled. I don't remember that. Raditz shrugged. I heard it while I was interrogating Paragus. I didn't take much notice at the time, but he blubbered something about the legendary Super Saiyan being a once-in-a-millennium event. Goku looked at the fight, then back at his brother. Yeah, you're right. You did mention Paragus saying something like that. So how's he doing it? This doesn't make any sense at all. The 6-Cell Juniors launched themselves at Break from all sides. She didn't move until the last second, jumping up into the air and avoiding their attacks. She landed behind one, putting her arm right through its skull with ease. She swung her arm back as a second leapt at her from behind, fingers scything through its neck like it wasn't even there. She brought her hands together around a third, its chest caving in beneath the incredible force, and its ribs and spine shattering. The remaining three jumped back wary. She whipped around, firing a tiny, pencil-thin energy beam from one finger that penetrated a Cell Junior's eye, killing it instantly. And then she was gone. The final pair looked frantically around, searching for her, but they couldn't keep up with her speed. She appeared behind one, holding up a hand behind each one and incinerating them. Hey! Goku yelled at her. You didn't have to kill them. They were no match for you. You could have just easily knocked them out. She ignored him. Are you listening to me? They were living, thinking creatures. You could have at least given them a chance. No response. Nail was closest to the fight and following it with rapt attention. He had never imagined that Break would have this kind of power. Of course, a few days ago, he'd never have imagined that anyone would have it. But Broly, Gohan, and Cell had shaken up his worldview. This energy's incredible. It makes sense, he explained to the others. I think I've got it. Look, Paragus said once in 1,000 years. But I don't think he knew what he was talking about. It's clearly some kind of dormant or recessive gene, and those don't operate to a schedule. However, if it was an extremely rare gene, it could well be that in a likelihood, only one legendary Super Saiyan is born every 1,000 years. I certainly wouldn't count on primitive people like the Saiyans used to be keeping exact count of years passing. Let's see. It's in all Saiyans, but buried so deeply, it'd have to be activated by some form of mutation or genetic instability. And Launch, with her literal physical metamorphosis tied in with her split personality, which by the way is suspiciously similar to Super Saiyan, blonde hair, aggressive personality. He looked around. Are you following me? Raditz shrugged. Mostly. Alright, good. Nell continued. Add this to the fact that Raditz had already achieved Super Saiyan when Break was conceived, which has never happened before. Cell basically confirmed earlier that Super Saiyan does something to your DNA which is then passed on. With this combination of uniquely unstable and powerful genes, it must have activated the latent potential that's in every Saiyan. I just hope she can control herself better than Broly could. Well, she isn't nearly as massive as he was, Zarbon pointed out. That implies control. Nail shook his head. Only over her power. Her personality is anybody's guess. And after the way she killed the Cell Juniors, well, let's just say I don't think Broly would have hesitated to kill Paragus if he had the chance. Break looked at the twisted corpses of the Cell Juniors, her mouth twisting in a cruel half-smile. However, the distraction had given Cell enough time to get behind her and charge up an attack. Sensing the key spike, she turned just in time to see the bright yellow burst of energy. Tri-beam! Cell shouted. Break hurriedly swung a hand up, knocking the blast away into the air, but she hadn't had time to fully focus her energy, and the beam incinerated her left glove, scorching the skin underneath. She growled, advancing towards Cell, who was beginning to sweat. Take this! Kiadzan! She jumped over the disc with casual ease, now that she was expecting an attack. Special beam cannon! Sidestepped. Dodon Ray! Backhanded away. Kamehameha! Caught between both hands and held back until it flickered out. Damn you! He hissed, nervously backing away as she approached. What is this? Break's reply came in the form of a violent pulse of ki, throwing Cell back. He scrambled to keep his footing, and she grinned at his fear. I told you, Cell. It's over. Your stolen techniques won't work anymore. Shut up! He shrieked, launching himself at her, feeling his blows swing through the empty air as she moved the minimum distance necessary to dodge each one. Cell shuddered. I am the ultimate being! Save it! She fired another ki, this one sending him reeling back, his feet digging up skid marks in the ground. No, I won't be beaten this way. Not by her! Cell raised his hand as if to punch again, and she prepared to idly dodge, but he shifted his stance quickly, adopting a familiar pose. Solar Flare! Break staggered away, her overconfidence and rage having left her open, arms waving in front of her face in a futile effort to ward off the disabling light. Cell saw his opening and struck, charging up his foot with energy and planting it directly in her midsection. A soft hiss of breath escaped her mouth, and she folded up, dropping to the ground. Cell retracted his leg, standing up straight with a satisfying smirk. So, you're not invincible. Break rolled over onto her back, and Cell saw to his surprise as she was smiling. Good, she said, climbing to her feet. You're not so weak. Not a total waste of time. Of course I'm not, Cell snapped. I'm the perfect combination of DNA from the Earth's greatest fighters. She snorted. Right. You're always talking about that. Perfect. Ultimate. Her eyes narrowed. It gets old. Don't think you've won, Cell snarled, raising his guard. I'm going to kill you. It doesn't matter how powerful you are. You're an inferior design. You are flawed. You have weaknesses. I'll kill you and all your friends. My friends? Like Yamcha?
she asked, breathing heavily. Like Tien? Visions of her dead future flashed in her mind, and her blank, pure white eyes blazed. Like Trunks! Cell felt an impact to his chest, cracking his armor plating and making Break's previous blows feel like gentle taps by comparison, hurling him up into the air. I'm done playing with you! She yelled, raising both hands in front of her face. Burning! No! Cell howled, crossing his arms in front of his body to try and shield himself. It can't end this way! Flash! A bright golden energy beam shot forth from her hands, slamming into Cell and carrying him off into the sky. It arced up, shooting off into space, burning, flickering energy stabbing into Cell's body from all around. He felt himself coming apart, the attack ripping into his flesh and tearing it asunder. No! I will not be defeated! My perfection! Piece by piece, he dissolved, evaporated, and finally, he was gone. The beam faded into the dark void. Break lowered her arms, panting with near exhaustion. Though she didn't want to show it, beating Cell had been easy. His kick had genuinely hurt, and her defenses hadn't been nearly as effortless as she let on. He'd had a significant advantage, yes, but only bravado and intimidation had made the two seem so completely outmatched. Raditz cautiously approached her, smiling hopefully. Break. I'm in control, she shrugged, her huge muscles rippling. I guess. But how? He asked incredulously. Nail frowned irritably. I just explained it to you. That's not what I mean. Her father looked into her eyes. Break. How did you do it? I'm not sure. She looked uncomfortable. You never deliberately aim for something specific, finding a new level. You just know. You need something. I had to win. I just had to. Raditz grinned. We thought we'd reached the limit of powering up. I guess you broke through it. You can thank your mother for this, you know. Break raised an eyebrow. I'll explain later. Right now, let's just be happy. That's right. Goku had a grin plastered on his face, spreading almost from ear to ear. You did it, Break. You saved the world. You stopped Cell. Is that a fact? Boomed a harsh, imperious voice. No. No. Goku clenched his fists. Doesn't that monster ever die? He can't be alive! Break growled. I blew him to pieces! Get ready, Raditz warned, glancing up into the sky. I'm getting tired of this regeneration crap. He's coming, but tell me I'm not the only one sensing this. Not, Nail nodded. I'm afraid his power is even greater than before. Is that right? Cell said quietly from behind them. They whirled, jumping with fright, seeing the reborn monster perched on a rocky outcrop, barely a meter away. Zarbon choked. But he was in the sky just a moment ago! I didn't even see any movement. Goku muttered. He's faster than before, too. Cell bowed. His power was indeed much greater now. But that wasn't the only change. Blue sparks of electric energy crackled around his body, filling the air with an acrid, metallic taste. Now, I suppose you're all just dying for an explanation. Well, don't say I never gave you anything. He cleared his throat, as if giving a lecture. Namekian regeneration is such a useful little trait, and coupled with the Frost Demon's ability to survive in space, well, coping with that attack was child's play, really. He chuckled. But of course, wouldn't you expect me to be weakened, drained, not stronger than ever? Well, as a matter of fact, you Saiyans are responsible for this latest development. Don't tell me, Raditz scowled. You came back stronger after a near-death experience, just like a Saiyan. Cell nodded. That's right. But you couldn't have! That ability provides diminishing returns at higher power levels. It doesn't give us any benefit at all at our strength. Oh, normally you'd be quite right, Cell said, grinning. However, the ability would give a greater power boost, would it not? If the user had come back from, say, being reduced to a single cell. Krillin frowned. You regenerated? From one cell? Oh, I did. Even I didn't think I would survive, so perhaps I was exaggerating a little when I called it child's play. Maybe the fact that I thought I would die was the reason the same trait activated. Who knows? It's irrelevant. I thought I was perfect as I was before. Now I see the truly perfect design is the one that continually improves, always growing stronger. But enough of this gloating. Our battle can now resume. He pointed at Break. Isn't that right? She growled like a cornered animal. This doesn't change anything! Oh, but it does. Shall I prove it to you? Cell leapt forwards, laughing, and disappeared. Break stumbled back in alarm, eyes widening, and quickly vanished as well. The fighters ricocheted back and forth around the plains, every strike and block twisting and tearing up the landscape. Break missed a punch, and a mountain miles away shattered. Cell blocked a kick, and a nearby town suffered an unprecedented earthquake. After a full, unrelenting minute of this, they reappeared, landing opposite each other. Break was swaying from side to side, trying her best to remain standing, her aura flickering as if ready to explode. Cell stood confidently, arms folded. Well, that was interesting. With your power so volatile and unstable, and us both having so recently come into our full potential, I genuinely didn't know who was the stronger. But it appears to be me, does it not? Ha! Break yelled, throwing herself forwards and kicking Cell in the face. But he didn't flinch. Incredible, Krillin muttered. That attack could have split the planet in half, but he just stood there and took it. I fear, Raditz said quietly, numbly. And even Break's new power can't save us now. Cell really is perfect. He can survive anywhere. He can regenerate any injury. And just get stronger. We can't beat him. Nobody can. He sank to his knees, his fingers digging into what little grass hadn't been burnt to ash around them. We were fools to even try. Goku shook his head. This isn't over yet. Have a little faith. Raditz grimaced. Faith. Cell spun, knocking Break's legs out from under her, and aided her fall with a sweeping overhead elbow strike, throwing her to the floor. She struck both hands out beneath her, stopping her fall and swinging her legs up towards him, but he ducked back, easily avoiding the double-footed kick. She continued the movement, pushing off with her hands and backflipping to her feet. Nice try, taking my attack. But I felt it, she grinned. Your energy dropped, for a moment. It's the same trick I used. You're stronger than me, but not by that much. Cell snickered. True, true. You did injure me somewhat. Perhaps you'd have a chance, however small, at full power. But you're not, are you? No, that blast you tried to kill me with took a lot out of you. And so you will fall. He raised a hand, firing off a quick energy bolt that smashed into her, driving her backwards. And your planet falls with you. No! You won't! She charged him again, furiously attacking. You can't! Cell laughed, precisely timed blocks and parries turning aside each of her attacks. It's not your choice anymore, he gloated, ramming a knee into her side, feeling ribs buckle, but not break. Not yet. The news crew continued to watch. I'm not entirely sure what to make of this, the reporter whispered, as the ordinary humans clung to dear life for their cover as shockwaves from the superhuman battle rolled past them. You don't believe all that crap's really happening, do you? A gruff, boisterous voice asked. Hercule marched up to them, posturing like usual. I told you, it's all cheap tricks, not real fighting. The reporter raised an eyebrow. Cheap tricks like the one that knocked you out. Hercule frowned. Well, of course. It's not called a trick for nothing, you know. But I won't fall for it again. Another wave of force knocked them all to the ground. Well, I believe what I see, the reporter said obstinately. And you just can't explain all this away. An assistant ran up to him, whispering something to him, the results of a hurried investigation. The reporter smiled. I see. Well, Hercule, how would you respond if I asked you about the World Martial Arts tournaments before you begin to compete? There are multiple eyewitness accounts, not to mention photographic evidence, to suggest similar supernatural fighting techniques were employed, and not used as grounds for disqualification by the tournament officials. Hercule began to look flustered.
Look, mister, I don't know who you think you are, but,
he puffed out his chest,
I, sir, am the martial arts champion of the world, and I know real fighting when I see it.
At this point, another shockwave bowled him over, sending him spinning end over end along the ground, away from the battle. The reporter shrugged. I leave you to draw your own conclusions, viewers. The broadcast was live, international. Millions were watching, and though many drank in everything the champion told them, some began to mutter. Got himself knocked out. Of course he'd call it a trick. I've been to those tournaments. I saw people flying. Get back in the fight. What about King Piccolo and all those aliens a few years back? I know what I saw. Bray collapsed, gasping for air. She was bruised, beaten half to death, or at least it felt like it. Cell stalked towards her in a relaxed pose. Well, he asked, don't disappoint me. You're the best the Earth has to offer. At least help me pretend you're worth killing. Come on. Stand up. Fight! If you insist. Goku stood firmly between Cell and Break. Goku? Cell sneered. Out of my way. Your turn will come. But I must destroy this one first. She needs to die. She almost killed me. I cannot let such a being exist in this world. Not while I'm still here. Goku attacked, but 5 sharp blows sent him sprawling before he could even connect one punch. He sprang back up, tasting blood in his mouth. It mingled with the metallic taste that Cell's electric aura filled the air with. And with the shock, Goku realized something. That energy coming from Cell. I know it. The taste in the air. It's like Gohan? When he beat Broly. Yes, the energy's the same. Cell, is he tapping that same power? And what is that power anyway? He shook his head. It didn't matter. He couldn't feel any such reserve inside himself, and he didn't have Break's potential either. He just knew what he had to do. He had to win. It was what he'd always done. He'd fought, and he or his friends had come out on top. But Cell was invincible, it seemed. What could he do? He had to be stronger. Had to be stronger. That's it. Several days ago, within the hyperbolic time chamber, Goku was pacing back and forth. He had it. He was replaying the memory over and over in his head. Yes, that was it. Dad? Gohan asked. Goku looked up, smiling. Hey, son. Just thinking about something. I thought we were going to be Super Saiyans for as long as possible, Dad. Gohan himself was transformed at the time. You're, normal. Yeah, I know. Goku settled into a low stance. That's intentional. Let's see. He gritted his teeth, summoning up his energy and concentrating it, almost like it was folding back in on itself, compressing, doubling its efficiency. Kaioken! A burning red aura flared to life around Goku's body, enveloping him. Cool! It worked! He jumped back and forth, trying a few experimenting punches and kicks in the air. My speed and power definitely increased, but he relaxed, powering down and letting the aura fade. It's nothing compared to Super Saiyan. Never mind, I guess. He transformed into a Super Saiyan with little effort, turning to face Gohan. The Half Saiyan looked confused. I didn't know you knew the Kaioken, Dad. Goku laughed. Actually, that was my first try. But I've seen Tien and the others do it, and I'm a quick learner. A quick learner? Gohan shook his head. Nobody can do the Kaioken without King Kai's training, and you haven't had that. Goku smiled. Hey, Master Roshi said it'd take me 50 years to learn the Kamehameha, and I did it first try. He felt a little self-conscious. Not to brag or anything, but it doesn't matter. There's no point using Kaioken. It's not like I can use it on top of Super Saiyan or anything. Or can I? Goku honestly didn't know, but he was getting desperate. As he was obviously no match for Cell. It's worth a try, I guess.
No! No, 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 1,000 times no!
King Kai's voice stabbed into his mind.
Goku, let's be clear on this. I tell you people not to do a lot of things. You do them anyway, and you're usually right. But trust me on this one. It won't help you. The two types of energy are completely different. They'll clash inside your body, and you'll be burned out of power at best, ripped apart from the inside at worst.
He grew frantic.
Do you understand me?
Sure, Goku thought. But I'm going to die here anyway. Might as well go for it. Besides, aren't you curious?
No! No, I'm not! Goku, there has to be another way!
Well, I don't see one. Here goes. Goku inhaled deeply, collecting his power inside him.
Yeah!
And focus.
Super Kaioken!
He bellowed, feeling it burst out of him. His golden aura and hair flashed red, and he shot forwards with boosted speed. A strengthened fist cracked into Cell's face, hurling him away through the air. However, the moment passed, and Goku felt a clash inside him. Instantly, the power vanished, the Kaioken and Super Saiyan energies within his body reacting violently to each other. He collapsed, his power gone, only remaining in his Super Saiyan state at all due to weeks of learning to sustain it with almost no energy consumption. Cell, having leisurely righted himself, was walking over towards the fallen forms of Break and Goku. Interesting, he said, rubbing a bruise on his face where Break and Goku's attacks had hit the exact same spot. But I'm afraid that gamble ended up hurting you a lot more than it did me. Oh well, he shrugged. It was certainly an inventive move, but you only delayed the inevitable. I'm done here. Your mightiest have fallen. And now all that is left is for me to clean up.
What is this?
Cell found himself unable to move, encased in a shimmering blue field of light. This? Bulma snapped her goggles down, wiping grease from her face and flicking a switch on her anti-cell device. This is science. And there you have it. It took ages to finally get done a second time. As you may have read in my edits to chapter 35, I had to rewrite this. But I fixed the problem now. It's okay. There shall be no accidentally losing entire chapters and having to start over anymore. So, I hope Break's transformation doesn't seem too overpowered here. As you can see, it's inferior to Super Saiyan 2 anyway. The movie always gave a really vague explanation. Read, no real explanation at all, for Legendary Super Saiyan. So hopefully this version will make sense. Thanks go to David Starlingham for suggesting the idea. I'd had an almost identical idea a while ago, but decided against it, and then he convinced me it was a good idea after all. And writing up how he thought the scene would go, which I then adapted to produce what you see here. The bit from even if she'd been at her absolute maximum to Nail's explanation. In his version, it was Gohan doing the theorizing, having failed to access his Super Saiyan 2 power against Cell, because at the time chapter 34 wasn't yet uploaded and he didn't know Gohan would have the heart virus. Don't worry, there will be a chapter on Sunday as normal. We should be back on schedule now. And now, for my customary joke that I've used until it isn't funny anymore. Just humor me because I really like doing this. Will Bulma's anti-cell device finish off the monstrous bio-android once and for all? Can Break keep control of her power? Is this really the end of the greatest battle the Earth has ever known? Find out next time on What? It didn't record my... I can't get this damn machine to work. It keeps... Screw it, I'm just going to turn it off. On Dragon Ball Z! Just some randomness for the end. Anyways, stay tuned for chapter 37. See you in a bit. Cell hissed angrily, writhing in frustration as he struggled to escape the shining energy-fueled Bulma's machine projected.
This cannot be! I meant to do battle with great warriors, not fall prey to some mechanical trick!
Bulma winked, wagging a finger. Now, fair's fair. Science and technology created you, after all, so it's really just my genius against Dr. Giroux's. She sighed as she twisted a dial on her device. And really, That's no contest, now is it? I didn't honestly think it'd be fixed this quickly. Sometimes, I even impress myself.
Cell twisted, pounding on the barrier, but it held.
Curse you! I wasn't ready for this!
Uh-huh.
Bulma tapped a series of buttons.
And...
Capture. A shutter ran down the cable connecting the tube-like handheld portion of her machine to the large metal box that was now bolted to the ground for stability. The vibration reached Cell, and the immobilizing light grew brighter. Cell's form began to stretch, elongating and compressing as he was sucked inside the tube. It shook violently, and the shaking began to pass back down the cable into the box. Lights flashed wildly all over the machine, blinking on and off like traffic lights gone mad.
come on.
Bulma wrestled with the device, holding it steady.
Keep it up.
She jammed the palm of her hand down on a lever, wrenching it across to the on position.
And disintegrate.
There was a final shake from the box, and then it fell silent. The lights darkened as the entire machine powered down. Bulma grinned nervously.
I think it worked.
I wouldn't be too sure. Raditz glanced around, warily. He's been decapitated and blasted into pieces, but he's always come back. Don't let your guard down. Bulma shrugged.
I don't think so. You can regenerate from one cell, but this wouldn't have even left that much.
She lifted up her goggles, propping them on her forehead and shaking off her gloves as she set the device down.
You know what they say, third time's the charm. He's gone for good this time, guys.
Nope. Bulma froze. She knew. She knew it was Cell standing behind her, having pulled off yet another death-defying escape. In that moment, she felt despair. Cell realized this, and decided it was the perfect emotional note for her life to end on. Cell raised his hand with superhuman speed. Bulma, a normal human, appearing frozen into place to his eyes, and the other fighters, desperately trying to intercept him, looked like they were moving in slow motion. Even Break seemed sluggish and lethargic, and Cell grinned maliciously, just long enough for them to see it. Then he released a tiny energy beam from his fingertip. It shot in a perfectly straight line at the back of Bulma's head, drilling a neat hole into her skull, instantly cauterizing the wound, leaving no blood at all. It burrowed inside her head, piercing through into her brain. Cell, programmed with an intimate knowledge of human anatomy, expertly directed the beam, boring through her mental pathways, searing and burning out all the vital areas, completely destroying her brain. With almost no visual damage, Bulma dropped to the ground. It would almost seem redundant now to state that she was dead. Zarbon, seeing the body of the woman he loved hit the floor, flew into a murderous rage. With a wordless scream, he rocketed at Cell, his eyes blazing gold. But the creature's hand plucked him out of the air, neatly pinching his neck between two fingers. Now, Cell said with a smirk. Don't be hasty. You'll get your turn. He threw Zarbon away, turning his attention to Break, who was barreling towards him with thundering footfalls. If Gohan had been like a father to her, Bulma was everyone's mother. Even this younger version of her was a loss that stuck deep. Ah, ready for another round? Cell leapt off into the air, and he and Break disappeared as their battle rejoined, their violent clashes shaking the landscape once again. Their reaction, however, their pain, their loss, was nothing compared to Goku's. He was crouched on the ground, cradling Bulma in his arms. Tears streamed down his face. Bulma, get up! He sounded like a child again. She was his oldest friend, aside from his adoptive grandfather, the first human being he had ever met. Don't leave me alone. I can't do it. I'm sorry. I'm not strong enough. The assembled fighters began to despair. Goku never lost hope like this. He was always trying, fighting harder. But he had nothing left. If even Goku had given up, there was truly no hope. He hung his head, shoulders shaking as he wept.
Huh?
A human? Really? Yes, silly. I'm just like you. Take a look. You're kinda like me, but there's something different. Well, duh, Brainiac. I'm a girl. Girl? You mean female? Hello? Surely you've seen a girl before. I never saw another human before. My dead grandpa always told me, if you ever meet a girl, treat her nice. So what is that monster anyway? How'd you catch it? That monster happens to be my car. People make them. So this is a car? Whoa. Wait, are you from civilization? Well, I guess I have to let you in on my little secret. They're called Dragon Balls. You're collecting them? The next closest is to the west, about 1,200 kilometers. By the way, what's your name? I'm Goku, Son Goku. How about you? I'm Bulma. Isn't that a word for underwear? Shut up! I didn't pick it. Which capsule is the bike? Oh yeah, number 9. Yeah! I knew it! You are a witch! Get over it, ape boy. Everybody in the city's got capsules.
The memories flashed through his mind, passing in an instant. He just couldn't deal with it. Cell had taken the Dragon Balls. There was no bringing anybody back. And he had the heart medicine too. A world without Bulma or Gohan. It just didn't fit into Goku's mind. It couldn't happen. But it was happening before his eyes. Confronted by a situation he just couldn't cope with, Goku's mind was stretched to a breaking point. Then, there was a flickering at the edge of his mind. Gohan's energy was fading. And staring into Bulma's lifeless eyes, his tears falling on her face, realizing his son, too, was dying, he broke.
How did you do it?
Break hissed as Cell blocked her fist.
You were trapped in that machine!
Easy. Instant transmission. It was actually more of a defensive reflex than anything. I wasn't even aware that I was capable of the technique. Cell delivered a sweeping kick, knocking Break to the ground again. Nice try, but I think you knew how that was going to go. Suddenly, his head jerked and his body convulsed as a huge wave of power rippled through him. What? Trembling as he sensed something almost beyond comprehension, Cell turned. There was a blur of motion, and Bulma's body lay next to Zarbon. Another movement, and Goku stood in front of Cell. His hair was slightly more pointed, angling upwards more, and sparks of blue electricity crackled around his body, arcing up and down through his aura. The shock. Cell realized it was exactly like his own aura since coming back from near death. Only somehow, Goku seemed far more potent. Goku's ki was also massive, intimidating even Cell. But the thing that really terrified him was the Saiyan's face. It was harsh, seething with anger, but not boiling over like Break. Goku seemed cold, almost calm. His eyes were hard, and yet he was still crying. Cell. It was one quiet word, but it brought complete silence to the battlefield. Then, without warning, Goku flared up his aura, his golden power roaring angrily. I will make you suffer! What are you? Cell whispered in fear. I am what Goku was afraid he might become, the Saiyan replied, tensing up as he prepared to attack. I'm a Saiyan warrior's heart. You can call me Kakarot. Bojack's head swung left and right, searching for his elusive opponent. There was no doubt in his mind that he'd be victorious. He always was. He'd seen his enemy's power, and impressive though it was, it paled before his own. There was a sharp crack over to his left, and Bujin's body tumbled out of the window of a nearby ruined building, landing with a wet thump. Bojack growled in irritation, and his minions were getting difficult to replace. Zangya! He called. Lord! She appeared behind him, answering his call. Heed your comrade's example. Don't let your guard down for an instant. This foe will seize any advantage you give him. Zangya nodded at his words, and leapt off to continue the search.
Bojack's gaze again swept back and forth as he strolled through the ruins of this once peaceful civilization. "Come on, Super Saiyan!" he shouted. "Come out and fight us! The skulking does not become you! You are royalty, are you not? Face me!" "Not while the witch lives," came the reply. "I won't fall for the same trick twice." Bojack spun, firing a blast that leveled the remains of a suburb, but Vegeta had already moved on, creeping from shadow to shadow, keeping his energy output as low as possible. An impressive feat while still in the Super Saiyan form. Bojack snorted. "I'm getting bored of this. Zangya, to me!" he shouted. His last remaining servants settled to the ground in front of him. "My lord?" she asked. Without warning, Bojack fired a pulsing green energy bolt into her stomach, blasting her away from him, her form disappearing in a violent explosion. "There!" he called out to the ruins. "She's dealt with. Will you face me now?" In answer, Vegeta leapt up behind him, landing a 2-footed kick to the back of his head, bowling him over. "You're wide open!" the prince said, triumphantly. Bojack quickly recovered, raising his guard in time for Vegeta's second assault. The Saiyan and the Harrigan traded rapid blows, Bojack allowing himself to be pushed back by the onslaught, the pirate's expression permanently one of mild amusement. "You're better than I expected!" he congratulated Vegeta, who answered with a high punch. Bojack's lightning reflexes saved him as he ducked to the right. Breaking off from the close-range combat, Bojack jumped up and backwards, unleashing a hail of energy bullets. Vegeta found the high-speed projectiles difficult to dodge, dashing back and forth to avoid them one at a time. He skidded to a halt as the last one exploded next to him, and at that moment, Bojack appeared behind him, kicking him to the ground. "Ha! Now who's wide open?" Vegeta allowed himself to roll along with the grit and rubble, letting the natural momentum of his movements spin him to face Bojack, as he raised one hand. "Big Bang Attack!" Concern registered on Bojack's face, as the off-white energy sphere shot at him, but he dived to the side just in time, avoiding the devastating blast. "Where did that come from all of a sudden?" he frowned. "Your energy control is admirable." Vegeta stood up shakily, trying to recover from the power drain of charging such a powerful attack so quickly. "And there's more where that came from. This fight's just getting started." "Oh, is that so?" Bojack smiled. "From where I'm standing, it was over before it even begun. Let me show you." Without warning, his ki skyrocketed, and he underwent the same transformation Goku had. His muscles bulging out as his skin color became a light green, and his hair turned from orange to dark red. His jacket, not designed for such a huge creature, ripped away entirely, and his bandana fluttered free, drifting to the ground next to him. "Ah, that feels much better." "Ha!" Vegeta's disdain was clear. "You think I'm intimidated by that? I've transformed too! Come at me with all you—" Bojack's attack swept him off his feet, the space pirate blurring as he moved, slamming his forearm into Vegeta's chin. The Super Saiyan caught himself, pushing off the ground and landing on his feet, but Bojack was already behind him, one gnarled, meaty hand grabbing around Vegeta's neck. He threw a ki blast straight into Bojack's face in desperation, but it had no effect, and Bojack just swung Vegeta face first into the ground, letting go and stamping his foot down on the Saiyan's back. Gah! Vegeta coughed up blood, feeling the sharp, broken rock digging into his skin, as Bojack drove him into the ground. "No! I won't lose!" He shot out a burst of ki upwards, shoving him further down and hiding him underground. Bojack stood up, looking warily around. Where are you? The ground collapsed beneath him, Vegeta jumping into the air and simultaneously kicking Bojack down into the hole he'd created, flying higher as he charged energy between his hands. Bojack was struggling to dig himself out, and Vegeta took the opportunity to fire. Final! A colossal golden beam shot down from between his hands, crashing into the ground with explosive force. Flash!